Hi, my name is Ofer Unger, and I'd like to show you how surveys can be a great help for hypothesis testing. So let's say that we are testing that among runners, male runners are a lot more likely to be motivated by competition than do female runners. So how would we organize a survey to test this? Well, first of all, we'd ask the respondent for their gender. And then we can ask all sorts of questions that basically ask how competitive the respondent is. So here all of these questions basically ask how competitive our respondent is, and they each ask it in a different way. Do you train on a consistent and regular basis? Do you follow a plan? Do you get frustrated when an injury arises yet do not give up on running? Do you run year-round with minimal breaks? Do you continually strive for new PRs? So these four questions are a little bit different than this last one, just to show a point. These ones are radio button scales. In other words, the values to respond are on a scale from 1 to 4, where the left side, 1, is not at all, meaning I'm not competitive. And the right side is yes, very much so. In other words, I am quite competitive. This last question is not a radio button scale, but a regular radio button group. It doesn't have values that are numeric. These are the values, okay? I never think about breaking my PR. Breaking my PR would be nice, but I rarely try. I try breaking my PR sometimes. I regularly try to break my PRs. In other words, it is still meaningful as a scale, okay? It goes from the least competitive to the most competitive. And what I'd like to say about this question is that we need to indicate that this is a scale, okay? How we do this, we go to options, and we just click scale indicator here. Okay, let's go back and see how our survey looks like. Okay, let's preview our survey. Okay, so this is how the survey would look like. Again, we have our question, what is your gender? And what we'd like to show is that male respondents tend to reply or respond more towards the higher numbers, okay? And female respondents would tend to respond at lower numbers, okay? Let's go ahead and take a look at our survey's responses. Let's go to our statistics. And these are standard statistics. We can see that more than 450 were female respondents, and above 630 are male respondents, and that's okay. They don't have to be the same number. That's absolutely okay. Now, to check whether our hypothesis is true, we would go to contingency checks. And what do we see on this page? First of all, there's some explanations. Let's go over these. Numbers, where displayed, represent the percent likelihood of dependency between two questions calculated using the chi-square test for independence. Click the colored cells to view the relevant charts. Let's have a look at this table here. Specifically, let's look at the cell belonging to the first row and the sixth column. Okay, so that's this cell over here. And this cell represents the first question and the sixth question. And the value in the cell, which is 99.99, is actually the chi-square test calculation. And what it says is that the likelihood for a relationship or a dependency or correlation between these two questions, which are what is your gender and do you continually strive for new PRs, is the likelihood is very high. It's actually 99.99%. Or in other words, there's only a 0.01% that the responses to these two questions came out like they did just by chance alone. Let's go ahead and click on this cell to get to the graphs representing it. And let's look at the percent graph over here. What we can see here is that for male respondents, 26.6% of them answered that they regularly tried to break their PRs, whereas less than 14% said that they never even think about breaking their PRs, whereas for females, only 12.3% said that they regularly tried to break their PRs, and quite a high percentage, 36.8%, said that they never think about PRs. In other words, we can see here that there is a strong relationship between gender and between the respondent's gender and whether the respondent, whether it's important for the respondent to break their PR. Let's go back to our table on top just to show one final point. You may be wondering why all the other questions have a high likelihood of correlation, and the answer is fairly simple. Basically, all the other questions ask the same thing, whether how high the motivation comes from competition. Okay, they just ask the question in a different way. For example, let's go to this cell here. Do you train on a consistent and regular basis? And do you follow a plan? It makes sense that people who give a high score to the first question would also give a high score to the second question. For this reason, all these questions have a strong correlation between them, basically because they're asking the same thing. Thank you for watching.